Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Much Ado About Nothing. We are not working on Measure for Measure, as one very astute viewer noticed yesterday. I said the wrong name of the wrong play, but let's not make a big deal out of it. See what I did there? Anyway, we are working on Much Ado About Nothing, and we are in Act 2. Today we get to hear from Benedicke in what a lot of versions call Act 2, Scene 3, but as we've mentioned in the folio, he didn't really put in scene breaks. It was all just a bunch of acts. So basically, everybody in the play is hanging out at Leonato's place. Don John and his henchmen want to cause a little bit of trouble because they can and because they're a little bit miffed that they lost this battle that they were fighting against Don Pedro. Don Pedro and Claudio and those guys want to see if they can make Benedicke and Beatrice fall in love with each other, because Benedicke is a proclaimed bachelor and Beatrice is a proclaimed bachelorette. Neither of them wants anything to do with romantic love or marriage or any of that sort of thing. And Benedicke is a little bit sad about the fact that Claudio, who's his friend of the week, has fallen in love with Hero and wants to get married to her, because he's like, I had a good bachelor friend and now I've lost my good bachelor friend to the whole getting married thing. And on that front of getting married, during this masked ball, there was very nearly a kerfluffle where Don Pedro was supposed to be wooing Hero for Claudio, but Don John and Baraccio and those guys tried to make Claudio think that Don Pedro was wooing Hero for himself. But then, of course, Don Pedro shows up and he's like, no, she's all yours. I wooed her for you. She's yours. So Claudio and Hero are going to get married. To pass the time between now and when they get married, Don Pedro and Claudio and some others are going to try to make Benedicke and Beatrice fall in love. And Don John and his henchmen, to cause some trouble, are going to try to make it look like Hero has had relations prior to marriage, because Baraccio is going to stand outside Hero's window and flirt with Hero's handmaiden, Margaret, so that it looks like Hero has been flirting and or chatting up whatever with somebody who is not her intended Claudio. So anyway, that hasn't quite happened yet. At the beginning of Act 2, Scene 3, or this section of Act 2, Benedicke is sort of there by himself, and then he calls in a boy and tells the boy to go get a book, and the boy is like, I'm already back. And Benedicke says, I know that, but I would have thee hence and here again. I do much wonder that one man, seeing how much another man is a fool when he dedicates his behaviors to love, will, after he hath laughed at such shallow follies in others, become the argument of his own scorn by falling in love. And such a man is Claudio. I have known when there was no music with him but the drum and the fife, and now he had rather hear the tabor and the pipe. I have known when he would have walked 10 mile afoot to see a good armor, and now will he lie 10 nights awake, carving the fashion of a new doublet. He was wont to speak plain and to the purpose, like an honest man and a soldier, and now is he turned orthography. His words are a very fantastical banquet, just so many strange dishes. May I be so converted and see with these eyes. I cannot tell. I think not. I will be sworn, but love may transform me to an oyster, but I'll take my oath on it, till he have made an oyster of me. He shall never make me such a fool. One woman is fair, yet I am well. Another is wise, yet I am well. Another virtuous, yet I am well. But till all graces be in one woman shall not come in my grace. Rich she shall be, that's certain. Wise, or I'll none. Virtuous, or I'll never cheapen her. Fair, or I'll never look on her. Mild, or come not near me. Noble, or not for an angel. Of good discourse, an excellent musician, and her hair shall be of what color it please God. The prince and Monsieur Love, I will hide me in the arbor. So he's pontificating. This whole thing is again about how not in love he is and how little he thinks of people who are in love. He's talking first about Claudio and how sad it is to see Claudio go from being, this strict and to the point soldier to the kind of man who, lounges and dreams up love poetry and uses all this flowery language and all that sort of thing. And he's like, this is not going to happen to me, because there isn't a woman good enough. I've met some women who are nice and some women who are pretty and all that sort of thing, but until I find one woman who is rich and smart and a good person and beautiful and even-tempered and of high birth and a good conversationalist and a good musician, and he's listing off all of these things, and then the one at the very end, he's like, yeah, I don't really care what her hair color is. That's fine, whatever. But until he finds one woman that fits all of these things, he's never going to fall in love or get married. But then he sees that Claudio and Don Pedro are coming, so he hides behind a bush. And Claudio and Don Pedro are very aware of the fact that he's hiding behind this bush, and this is intentional. So they start having a conversation, and there's a musician with them, and they're like, sing us a song, and blah, blah, blah. And as they're putting on this big loud show of we're listening to songs and we're chatting, all that sort of thing, they're also doing sort of he's over there, right? And he's paying attention, he can hear us, right? All of that sort of stuff, because they want Benedicke to hear this conversation, because after a song or two, they start talking about how they have heard that Beatrice is madly in love with Benedicke, and she gets up in the middle of the night to write him letters, but she doesn't know if she should send him the letters because she's pretty sure that if she tells him that she loves him, he'll just mock her and all that sort of thing. So they're like, well, should we tell him? And they're like, no, we shouldn't tell him. And Don Pedro's like, eventually I just told her that this was a burden that she was going to have to bear, that she's in love with such a distasteful, unhonorable, nuisance of a man as Benedicke, that sort of a thing. So at the same time that they're talking her up and talking about how virtuous and lovely and smart she is and how madly in love she is with Benedicke, they're also kind of ripping on him and saying there's no way that he is worthy of a woman such as Beatrice. And they get to the point where they're like, okay, do you think it worked? Do you think it worked? They're like, I think you took the bait, blah, 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 blah. They leave to go do some other stuff. And tomorrow, before we leave Act 2, we get to hear Benedicke's thoughts on what has just transpired and what this could possibly mean if Beatrice is actually in love with him. So I'll see you tomorrow for that. Mwah.